Part 121. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1201. Princess Wenqing nodded heavily. At this time, noisy footsteps came from outside the Chenghuang mansion. I was stunned for a moment, and then I sat down in the main hall. Then, I saw Xiangyi leading a group of people in. Among them, I recognized the 6 generals Fan, Xie, Gan, Lu, Wen, and Jiao at a glance. Fan and Xie are black and white and impermanent. Fan Wuzhu and Xie must be safe. However, regarding the impermanence of black and white, the bullhead horse Mian has recorded a lot. Black and white impermanence is also the soul seducer. There are many soul seducers, the most famous of which is black and white impermanence. Sometimes, other black and white impermanences will appear, but those are not the true nature. And the 2 black and white impermanents in front of me turned out to be the original body. Bai Vucheng, with a smile on his face, tall and thin, pale complexion, spitting out a long tongue, and the official hat on his head has the 4 words "Make money at first sight" written on it. He Vucheng has a ferocious face, a wide body and a fat body, a small face and a black face. On his official hat, there are 4 words "The world is peaceful" written on it. Unexpectedly, these 2 seducers actually obeyed Zhang Yucheng. General Gan Lu is Gan Pengfei and Lu Yu, who are in charge of executing the punishment. Wen Qiao refers to Wen Liang, the day travel god, and Qiao Kun, the night travel god. The sun god and the night god are 2 evil gods. The day god is active during the day and the night god is active at night. Gan Pengfei and Lu Yu are 2 generals. Xiangyi introduced to the 6 generals, "This is the new city god of Tianfu city god, Lu Su." As soon as these words came out, the eyes of the 6 generals all focused on me. Bai Vucheng narrowed his eyes, looked at me with a smile, and said, "What? Can anyone be the city god now? How dare a little kid with no hair to call himself the city god? It's really a joke." As soon as these words came out, Lu Hangxuan suddenly took a step forward, exuding a terrifying demonic aura. The demonic aura was actually mixed with dragon aura. When this aura appeared, an invisible pressure filled the entire main hall. How presumptuous! Who gave you the courage to talk to the city god like that? Lu Hangxuan is a 1,000-year-old immortal. If it weren't for protecting the soul of Mount Tai, she would have ascended long ago. Now she not only has a 1,000-year cultivation, but she is also about to transform into a dragon. This kind of oppression is not something ordinary people can bear. However, black and white and impermanence are not fuel-efficient lamps. As the gods of the underworld, they are naturally powerful. Bai Vucheng exudes a terrifying ghostly aura and competes with Lu Hangxuan. Princess Wenqing couldn't sit still when she saw this scene. She looked at Bai Vucheng coldly and said, "Lu Su is the city god of Tianfu city. Are you being so rude? Are you a little too ungrateful?" Princess Wenqing also released her own aura. In a sense, Princess Wenqing is a ghost fairy. Moreover, it has existed for thousands of years. The other 5 generals didn't say anything, they just watched quietly. Seeing that the atmosphere was deadlocked, I said, "Stop." Princess Wenqing and Lu Hangxuan withdrew their auras. I looked at Bai Vucheng coldly and said, "I guess you have been with Zhang Yucheng for a while. I think you know what he did." He, Zhang Yucheng, was the previous city god. Of course, he also died in my hands. As soon as I said this, the 6 generals looked at me in disbelief. They obeyed Zhang Yucheng, but Zhang Yucheng died in my hands, which shocked them a lot. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1202. The expressions of the 6 generals became a little strange. The process of killing Zhang Yucheng was very difficult. If we hadn't destroyed Zhang Yucheng's physical body before in Bamang Mountain, it would have been difficult to kill him again. I looked at the 6 generals coldly and said, "Whether you admit it or not, I am the city god of Tianfu city god. Bai Vuchang raised a sneer at the corner of his mouth and said to me, since you want to be the city god, let us see what your strength is. As soon as he finished speaking, Bai Vuchang waved his right hand, and the seductive rope came straight towards me. Lu Hangxuan wanted to stop her, but I stopped her with a look. This guy who sent me the message was clearly trying to make things difficult for me. If I don't show some real skills, I'm afraid it will be difficult for them to surrender. I looked at the seductive rope coming towards me, without any change in expression on my face. Just when the seductive rope was about to penetrate my skin, I used the pure lotus mark on the palm of my left hand. Holy and hazy white light enveloped me, and the hook instantly stagnated in the air, unable to move forward at all. Bai Vuchang's face changed slightly, and he disappeared in a flash. When he appeared again, he was already in front of me. I raised a sneer at the corner of my mouth and used the Nine Eyes Heaven Realm without any hesitation. I disappeared instantly, and Bai Vuchang jumped into the air. Before he could react, I called out Jingxiao, put Jingxiao on his neck, and said coldly, "What? Are you coming again?" Bai Vuchang is indeed very powerful. However, I am not what I used to be. I have many trump cards, the dragon energy of the 99 dragon veins, the 8-character mantra, the yin and yang double dragon diagram. Once these trump cards are used, Bai Vuchang will have no chance of survival. Bai Vuchang stood up and stared at me without saying a word. After a brief fight, I gained the upper hand with the help of Nine Eyes Heavenly Domain. Being able to kill Zhang Yuchang is indeed quite capable. Seeing that Bai Vuchang had no intention of fighting anymore, I put away my fear and looked at the other 5 generals with cold eyes. I don't know since when, my character has changed. Rather than saying that his character has changed, it is better to say that his strength has increased. Once my strength increases, I will no longer panic when facing some powerful enemies. You don't know what Zhang Yuchang did. But, what I want to say is that since I, Lu Su, am now the city god, there is no evil in Tianfu city. The 6 generals looked at each other, and He Vuchang and Fan Wuju stepped forward and said, "We can honor you as the city god, but before that, you must solve the dilemma Tianfu city is facing now." I was slightly startled by the plight of Tianfu city. I asked tentatively, "Are you talking about Dao sect?" Fan Wuju nodded, and continued, "Daemon and Yinggu have reached a cooperation. In just 1 week, hundreds of people have disappeared in Tianfu city, and the number is still increasing. If you can solve this matter, we will. I don't dare to have second thoughts about you." I agreed to this without even thinking about it. Even if Fan Wuju didn't say anything, I wouldn't let Daemon and Yinggu do whatever they want. Because they should never take Huaxiu away. Just leave this matter to me, I said. This incident was actually a test for me. After all, Tianfu city god has hundreds of thousands of yin soldiers. If he becomes the city god, he may not be able to convince the crowd without any skills. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qingnian Wanbao. Chapter 1203. The 6 generals nodded. My purpose of coming here has been achieved, although the 6 generals failed to recognize me as the city god of Tianfu city god. But, it makes no difference to me either. After all, the city god seal is in my hand. With this seal, I can command the Tianfu city god's hundreds of thousands of underworld soldiers. The 6 generals did not stay longer at Chenghuang Mansion, turned around and left. After they left, I fell into deep thought. After a while, I asked Xiang Yi, "How much do you know about Tianfu city? I want to find out something about Daemon and Yinggu in Xiang Yi. Because I have no clue now and don't know where to start investigating." Grandpa Zhong spent so much time and energy but failed to investigate the places where evil spirits were raised. Xiang Yi shook his head at me and said, I don't know either, but you can pay attention to the city god's temple. This sentence woke me up. I am now the city god of Tianfu city god. When citizens come to the Chenghuang temple, they will definitely have demands. Although I am not a god, I can still find out something I don't know through their mouths. Hundreds of people are missing in a week. Some people will definitely seek comfort and come to the city god temple to pray for blessings. In this way, I can easily learn what is happening in Tianfu city. After settling the matter here, I left Chenghuang city together with Lu Hangxuan and Xiang Yi without staying any longer. Back at the Chenghuang temple, Xiang Yi said goodbye to me. Before leaving, he said to me, I'm sorry, there are a lot of things going on in the underworld during this time. I can't help you with the matter of raising evil spirits. I waved my hand at Xiang Yi and said, I can handle this matter myself. Xiang Yi nodded and then left the city god's temple. Later, Lu Hangxuan and I returned to Jiyuntang. On the way, Lu Hangxuan said to me, I will retreat for a period of time to absorb the soul of Yinglong. If you have anything that cannot be solved, feel free to come to me. If Lu Hangxuan can successfully absorb Yinglong's soul, her cultivation level will definitely increase significantly. Good. Even if I really encounter something that I can't solve, I won't look for Lu Hangxuan. Because the process of absorbing Yinglong's soul cannot be disturbed by others. Back at Jiyuntang, Miao Fengluan and the others had already rested. I came to the second floor and wanted to go back to my room to rest, but when I wanted to open the bedroom door, I stopped. I came to Su Tianxuan's bedroom and opened the door. We had been away for a while, and a layer of dust had fallen on Su Tianxuan's bedroom. I found a rag and a broom and cleaned the room. Su Tianxuan's bedroom is very simple. Bed, table, wardrobe, chair, except for these 4 pieces of furniture, there is nothing else. When I was cleaning the closet, I hesitated and opened it and took a look. There weren't many clothes, but they were neatly folded and all were clean. I saw the cartoon pink nightgown in the corner. I shook my head helplessly. No one could have imagined that Su Tianxian, who was aloof and elegant, could be so innocent at heart. I closed the closet and placed the photo of me and Su Tianxian in the Tibetan village from my pocket on the table. I sat on the bed, looked at the group photo, and felt sad. Every separation is for the next reunion. I don't know how long we will be apart, but I think it won't be too long. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1204. I stood up and was about to leave when my eyes were attracted by a small notebook on the table. I hesitated again and again, picked up the book and started reading. At first glance, I didn't know that this was Su Tianxuan's diary. Unexpectedly, Su Tianxian also has the habit of keeping a diary. I started writing the diary a year ago, but I don't write it every day. Each diary entry is very simple. List a few. On March 5, 2022, the weather was sunny and nothing happened. On March 15, 2022, the weather is cloudy, so I will help people read divination. On March 20, 2022, the weather was fine and I helped people drive away ghosts. The diary has changed since May this year, and more words have been recorded. On May 10, 2022, Grandpa Linlong came to me and begged me to solve a problem for him. I haven't seen him for more than 10 years. Grandpa Linlong has become much older. He is no longer as high-spirited as before, I think it's because of the coffin. Reason. On May 12, 2022, I met the grandson of Grandpa Linlong. His name is Lu Su. I seem to have met him when I was a child, but I can't remember clearly. However, this son's character is a bit reckless. On May 13, 2022, Grandpa Linlong passed away, and Grandpa Linlong's family also paid the price for that coffin. That coffin was not a mortal thing, and I don't know how much bloodshed it caused. Grandpa Linlong begged me to be sure. I have to take care of his grandson, but I am used to living alone, how can I take care of him? These diary entries should have been written after I had settled matters in the village, that is, during the first few days when I arrived at Jiyuntang. May 14, 2022. I am really pissed off. I have never seen such an unreasonable person. If Grandpa Linlong hadn't told me so much before, I would have really wanted to turn around and leave. Today, May 17, 2022, he worshipped me as his master. I will not be born as a master. This is also my first time as a master, please ask him to understand me more in the future. I generally know everything that will be recorded later. The painted skin ghost, the evil star holding the sheep, the lightless alley. I don't know when Su Tianxuan's name for me in the diary changed to Xiao Su. After that, my name was in the diary almost every day. Xiao Su went to Miao territory, I hope nothing happens to him. Xiao Su cooked for me today. Although it wasn't very delicious, I was still quite touched. Xiao Su left Jiyuntang again, and I was worried, but in order for him to grow up as quickly as possible, all I can do is wait for him to come back, but I am really worried. The further down I looked, the more complex I felt. Su Tianxian is not good at expressing herself, but that doesn't mean she is a careless person. Her thoughts are more delicate than anyone else's. She recorded all the emotions she could not express in this diary. And I also know how much she has done in the corner that I can't see. There are several diaries written during this period. He's coming, what should I do? Just leave? Although Xiao Su has grown up, but he's not yet on his own. What will he do if I leave? He here should refer to the god who is engaged to Su Tianxian. I don't have much time left. I have to be cruel and leave Xiao Su alone in this world, but I really don't want to do that, because he told me that he wants to travel around with me. International. Sky Coffin. Author, Qingnian Wanbao. Chapter 1205. I continued reading. After all, I didn't have the heart to leave Penglay Immortal Island without saying goodbye. I think this will be the last time I spend with him. The diary stopped at this point, and it took about 7 or 8 years before I continued writing. I never thought that Xiao Su actually did it, that he actually brought me home. However, when I think about it carefully, I don't know where to start. Xiao Su's position in my heart surpasses everything, even my own life. I really want to have a family with Xiao Su. Although I have had this idea before, it is especially strong this time. I think, I am trapped. In the following content, Su Tianxuan's writing style has undergone great changes. She is like a little girl who has just begun to fall in love, her words are full of love for her heart. Xiao Su is becoming more and more unruly. Even if he takes advantage of me verbally, he can't even rest his hands. I'm so angry. If you say that in front of everyone, it seems that you shouldn't give him a good look. He is respectful in front of me. Forget it, let him do whatever he wants, but I'm not ready for that kind of thing. Looking at the content that followed, I couldn't help but raise the corners of my mouth. Although it is a very bad behavior to peek into other people's diaries. However, if I didn't look at it, how would I know that Su Tianxian had paid so much for me? The last article was written before going to Kunlun Mountain. The inheritance is about to begin. If it fails, I'm afraid I won't be able to stay with him for much longer, but, even if it succeeds, can we make it to the end? Xiao Su has too many things on his shoulders. I don't want him to give up on his goal of persisting for eternity because of me. Separation is inevitable sooner or later, but I hope that day can come later. The diary ends here. I don't understand why Su Tianxian is so pessimistic. Thinking of what happened before, would I really give up on Su Tianxian because of my own affairs? I think not. No matter what happens in the future, I will never give up on her. Instead, I firmly choose her, even if it is just a choice. I have no regrets. I found a pen in the drawer and started writing in my diary. Su Tianxian passed it on, and I will continue to write the next diary. When she sees it in the future, she will also know what I did during her absence. After writing the diary, I left Su Tianxuan's room. Early the next morning, Xiaohe and I went to the city god temple. The matter of the corpse-raising grounds cannot be delayed. I must find the 4 corpse-raising grounds as soon as possible, then destroy them and rescue Huaxiu. I originally wanted to come by myself, but this guy Xiaohe insisted on following me. The Chenghuang temple is guarded by specialized personnel. The person who took care of the Chenghuang temple last time was a Taoist priest, but this time, it was a young man. When the young man saw me, he was slightly startled. Then he hurriedly came to me and said respectfully, "The city god." I was stunned, and then I thought that this should be the person who signed the contract with the Chenghuang temple. Their duty is to guard the city god's temple, and it seems that this is the new temple guardian. I nodded at him and asked, "How many people came today?" "The Chenghuang temple has just opened, so no one will come. It is estimated that there will be more people at noon. After all, the city god's temple has been abandoned for a while." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qingnian Wanbao. Chapter 1206. Since Zhang Yuqiang's death, the city god's temple has lost its significance. After all, if there is not even a city god, how can anyone come to worship? Now that I am the trusted city god of Tianfu city god, this city god temple will naturally be reopened. Xiaohe looked around and said, "This temple is really impressive. Boss, this temple is yours now." I nodded. Xiaohe gave me a thumbs up and said, "Boss, you are so awesome." I smiled and said nothing. The time soon came to noon. After waiting all morning, a few people finally arrived. After they bought the incense and candle offerings, they went to the statue, lit the incense and candles, then knelt in front of the statue and prayed softly. The content of these people's blessings is also very simple. They are nothing more than good health and family happiness. Some students also pray for their own advancement. I am not a real god, so naturally I cannot complete their prayers. Even when Zhang Yuqiang was the city god, he naturally turned a blind eye to this kind of blessing. Come to the Chenghuang temple or other Taoist temples to pray for blessings. Just to find some inner comfort. I just stood aside and listened to these people's prayers. After noon, the number of people gradually increased. But I still haven't found any useful information. Just when I thought my trip today was in vain, a beautiful woman walked in. The beautiful woman looked very haggard, her eyes were sunken, her cheeks were sunken, she was staring at 2 big dark circles, and her hair was extremely messy. She is still very beautiful, but her energy is too low. The beautiful woman knelt down in front of the statue, looked at the figure, and said nothing for a long time. After a long while, the beautiful woman spoke slowly and said, I hope my child can survive successfully." Child. I frowned, because with some memories of Yuan Tiangang and Lu Bowen, I am relatively proficient in the art of fortune telling. There is a very deep and long vertical line in the Yintang area of the beautiful woman, which reaches the root of the mountain. This is the sign of a child. This line is also called the Zanzi pattern. It is the main punishment for a husband's child. People with this line and this face are naturally destined. If you are destined to be childless, it will be difficult to give birth. Even if a child is born later, the child will die due to various things. In short, People with such a face are destined to have no heirs and live a lonely life. This woman just said that her child could survive. If her child died, how could she survive? The beautiful woman was still murmuring, her voice was very low, and I couldn't hear clearly what she was saying, but through the shape of her mouth, I could tell that she was apologizing. The beautiful woman knelt on the ground for about 20 minutes. 20 minutes later, the beautiful woman slowly stood up and left in despair. I took this opportunity to hold the magic formula with both hands and perform the soul-chasing technique. The soul-chasing technique is to inject one's own spiritual consciousness into the opponent's body, and then pinch the magic formula to find its specific location. My gut told me that there must be something wrong with this woman. If her child is really dead, it will be impossible for her to come back to life, and what the woman said is that she hopes her child can survive successfully. If it is successful, it means that the beautiful woman is planning something. So, I have to keep an eye on her. Time passed slowly, and soon it was night. Apart from women, I saw no other strange people, so I planned to return to Jiyuntang first and then look for women. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1207. When I returned to Jiyuntang, I just opened the door and saw a familiar figure. I saw Ruo Hung sitting on the 8 Immortals chair with her legs crossed, holding a bag of potato chips in her hand and eating them with relish. Ruo Hung was still wearing a red dress, her jet black hair was draped casually on her shoulders, and the red made her skin look particularly fair. She has beautiful appearance and a great figure, but she is a little informal. How can any girl cross her legs so arrogantly? Yo! Lusu! You're back. Ruo Hung stood up suddenly. I nodded at her and replied, I'm back. Ruo Hung handed me the potato chips in her hand and asked, do you want to eat them? I rolled my eyes and said, can you eat less snacks? Eating too much is not good for your health. Look at your belly. It wasn't this big before. Ruo Hung was stunned and looked at her lower abdomen. She stretched out her slender hand and touched it, and said with some uncertainty, am I really fat? Fengluan, tell me, is Ruo Hung fat or not? Miao Fengluan came to Ruo Hung, looked her up and down, and said, no. Sister Ruo Hung has always had a good figure. Okay. Lusu. How dare you make fun of me? Saying that, Ruo Hung raised her pink fist and was about to hit me. I smiled. Ruo Hung and I hadn't seen each other for a while. I hadn't seen her since the last time we were separated in mission. Ruo Hung just pretended to fight and didn't really take action. Where's Grandpa Zhong? I scanned around and didn't see Grandpa Zhong. Miao Fengluan replied, he said he had something important to deal with. I nodded and said to everyone, I have to go out to do something tonight, don't worry. Everyone nodded in agreement, and after dinner, I performed the soul-chasing technique. Su Tianxian owns a luxury car, but has never driven it. It just so happens that I can drive it tonight to find the woman from the day. I drove, following the guidance of the soul-chasing technique, to the number 1 funeral home in Tianfu City. Funeral parlor? Why is that woman here? The funeral parlor is located at the foot of the mountain. With the dark moon and high wind tonight, the funeral parlor looks extremely eerie. The security room outside the funeral home was not manned. When I walked into the funeral parlor, I felt the overwhelming yin qi coming over me, and I shuddered subconsciously. There is a venue on the right side of the funeral home. There is a coffin with a portrait of an old lady hanging on it. Funeral parlors can not only burn bodies, but can also handle funerals. I followed the instructions of the soul-chasing technique and walked into the venue. The stairway leading to the second floor is in the venue. I walked along the stairs towards the upper floor. At this moment, I suddenly noticed that the portrait of the old lady seemed to be moving. I was slightly startled and looked at the portrait. The old lady in the portrait has a gloomy face and raised corners of her mouth, looking very strange. I frowned. There was no way I was wrong. There must be something wrong with this old lady. However, the purpose of my coming here is to find out what that woman is going to do, so naturally I won't waste time on this kind of thing. Soon, I arrived at the door of room 44 on the 4th floor. In order not to alert the enemy, I used the ability of Nine Eyes' heavenly domain to enter the room directly. As soon as I entered the room, I heard the conversation between a man and a woman. "Master, can this really save my daughter?" Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1208. Then came the man's voice. "Don't worry, if you follow my method, your daughter will definitely come back to you." "Then I'll trouble you, master." The woman's voice was a surprise. I came to the door, and a weak, dim light shone through the crack in the door. I carefully put my eyes against the crack of the door and looked at the situation inside the house. I saw two people, a man and a woman, standing in front of a bed in the room. The man is about 30 years old, wearing a black robe, with a thin build and a sallow complexion. This man gives people a very strange feeling. There seemed to be something wrong with his face, a little unnatural, and it made me feel like a puppet. Women are no different during the day. If I have to say it, their spirits are much lower. My eyes shifted from the two people to the wall. The sight of it didn't matter, it made my pupils tremble violently. Large and small glass jars were placed on the walls, containing various human mutilations and organs. I don't know whether the things in the glass jar were obtained from dead people or from living people. However, I can confirm that this man is not a good person. The man came to the table, opened the drawer, took out the documents and handed them to the woman. He said, "Sign this contract, and then after I finish casting the spell, you will bring your daughter into Changling community. You will feed your daughter with your own essence and blood every 3 days, and you will take a daughter with you every 7 days, a human sacrifice to your daughter." When the woman heard that a living person was to be sacrificed, her delicate body trembled slightly and she stammered, "Sacrifice a living person?" The man nodded and replied, "Yes, sacrificing living people, but you don't have to worry, your daughter will only absorb their yang energy, and it will have no effect on them." Inhaling yang qi has no effect? This man really knows how to talk nonsense. The most important thing for a person is the qi in his body. Once the qi disappears, the person is dead. Moreover, the man's manipulation was obviously refining the corpse. Because, I have already seen the body of the little girl lying on the bed. I think I already know where one of the burial grounds is. Changling community. The man took out a black bag, and from it he took out a pitch black needle, and then white silk thread. This man turned out to be a cobbler. Cobbler, also known as corpse stitcher, is a profession in ancient times that sewed the head and corpse together after someone was beheaded. Nowadays, most cobblers have become embalmers, helping the deceased to sort out their remains. This is a very noble profession. Of course, no matter what profession you are in, there are always black sheep, and some cobblers will also use their skills to harm others. If I guessed correctly, this cobbler wanted to use his own skills to manipulate this little girl's soul. If the little girl is really refined into a zombie, then the cobbler can control the zombie with his own tricks. Now that I have figured out everything, there is no need for me to continue eavesdropping. I stretched out my hand and slowly opened the door. The creaking sound echoed throughout the room. The second cobbler's expression turned stern, and he turned his head sharply to look at me. "Who are you?" I raised a sneer at the corner of my mouth, looked at him jokingly, and replied, "Lusu. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1209. When the second cobbler heard my shame, he was stunned on the spot, and then looked at me solemnly. "Lusu, we haven't gone to find you yet, but you actually came to our door. It's true that there is a way to heaven, but you don't take it. There is no door to hell and you just break in." Through this sentence, I can already confirm that the cobbler in front of me is a member of the Taoist sect. I looked at him jokingly and walked slowly towards the table. The second cobbler looked at me with a serious expression. I could see that he was making secrets with both hands, and the black needles in his hands instantly emitted bloody mist. He was just about to throw the black needle in his hand towards me. The next moment, a sinister wind filled the room, and a sinister soldier quietly appeared behind him. The Yin soldier held a long knife in his hand and pressed it against the second cobbler's neck from behind. The second cobbler looked horrified, his throat was crawling wildly, and cold sweat was falling down. I picked up the contract I had just signed on the table, opened it and took a rough look at it. This is a real estate purchase contract. The woman purchased room 312 in Changling Community. I put down the contract in my hand and looked at the cobbler. The second cobbler was held up by the Yin soldiers with a long knife on his neck, and he did not dare to move. "Lusu, what do you want to do?" the cobbler asked coldly. I sat on the chair, crossed my legs, and looked at the cobbler with a playful look in my eyes. "Give you a chance and tell me the specific locations of other corpse-raising grounds in your Taoist section." The second cobbler's expression changed and he immediately denied it. I don't know anything." Seeing that the cobbler was being tough, I didn't bother to talk nonsense with him. This cobbler was not of high moral character, otherwise he would not have been frightened by a Yin soldier. "If you don't want to say anything, then go die." I slowly raised my hand, and the Yin soldier behind the second cobbler slowly moved the long knife in his hand. Just when the cobbler was about to be wiped off his neck, the woman suddenly shouted at me, "Don't kill him." I was slightly startled when I saw the woman falling to her knees with a plop and pleading to me, "Please, don't kill him. Don't kill him. Only he can save my daughter." The woman knelt on the ground, crying and begging me. I frowned slightly, sighed helplessly, and said, "Do you know that everything you do will harm your daughter?" As soon as these words came out, the woman's whole body was struck by lightning, and she sat on the ground in a daze. What are you talking about? Why don't I understand?" I stood up, came to the girl's body, and said, "People cannot be resurrected after death. This is an unchangeable rule. He just wants your daughter to turn into a monster, and her soul will be enslaved by it forever, and she will never be reincarnated." The woman looked at me suspiciously. He didn't believe what I said. She said, "It's impossible for the master to lie to me. He must have a way to save my daughter." I shook my head helplessly. The second cobbler was now restrained by the Yin soldiers, so there was nothing fishy to do. "Since you don't want to believe what I say, let your daughter tell you in person." With that said, I came to the girl, made the magic spell with my hands, and recited the soul-calling mantra. As I recited the spell more frequently, a dark wind blew over me, and the figure of a little girl slowly appeared. When the woman saw the little girl, she was stunned on the spot. She exclaimed and rushed towards the little girl. "Lanlan!" But this pounce was in vain. The woman stretched out her hand to grab the little girl, but no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't catch her. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1210. I looked at the woman and said, "Don't waste your efforts. She can't hear a word you say." The woman turned around stiffly and looked at me in disbelief. She asked, What happened to my daughter?" I replied, "I just said that your daughter has been controlled by this person. If this continues, your daughter will never be born again. There is no mother in the world who does not care about her children. The same is true for women, but her love for her daughter is almost paranoid." After hearing what I said, the woman immediately collapsed on the ground like a deflated rubber ball. The corners of her mouth twitched slightly, and her nose kept twitching. I know she wants to cry, but people cannot cry when they are extremely sad. I sighed slightly and said, people and ghosts have different paths. If you really care about your daughter, you should let her reincarnate, instead of making her a human or a ghost in this way exist in this world. After listening to my words, the woman slowly raised her head, her eyes full of sadness, and asked, then, is it still urgent to come now? I nodded and replied, of course it's urgent. When this happened to me, I naturally came to help. I often say something like this. I am not a saint and cannot help anyone, but I am willing to help those who need help under my sight. However, as my strength further improved, I also realized that the burden on my shoulders was getting heavier and heavier. The saint can help others, and the strong can help himself. I don't know if I will become a saint in the end. Thinking of this, I stood up, kneaded the secret with both hands, and cast the heart-cleaning mantra. I stretched out my index finger and gently touched the little girl's forehead. There was a flash of golden light, and the little girl's originally dull sight gradually recovered. She looked around blankly and focused her gaze on the woman slumped on the ground. Mother. The woman's body trembled when she heard this voice. She stood up tremblingly, stretched out her hand, and gently stroked the girl's cheek. Although she couldn't touch it, it was a comfort to her. Instead of disturbing the last time the mother and son spent together, I focused my attention on the cobbler. I came to him and said coldly, let me ask you for the last time, where are the places where corpses are raised? The cobbler was frightened by my actions just now, which also made him experience the feeling of death. I don't know, I really don't know. The cobbler said with a trembling voice. I just helped them plant the soul-destroying trees. I really don't know about other things. Soul-catching wood is an evil thing that controls people's hearts. What the cobbler does is to help the deceased regain their appearance in life. And they usually encounter some extremely damaged corpses. Either arms or legs are missing, and some even have no head. At this time, the cobbler must use dough and other materials to restore the appearance of the deceased. Some cobblers will also carve them out of wood, and then use the cobbler's secret skills to restore them to their original shape. And, the soul-stirring wood can not only restore the deceased to their original state, but also control the deceased and turn them into puppets. I looked at the cobbler carefully. He didn't lie to me, but I couldn't let him continue to live, because such a person didn't deserve to live.